This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. It's really hard to think of a week of Yankees baseball that is more emblematic of what they have been from 2018 to present than what we just saw. 2 series against AL East opponents, 2 series losses. One of them on the road in which they won the middle game 15-3, but could not do anything of note in the games 1 and 3. 2 close losses, almost comebacks, not quite. Again, big holes, return to close to equilibrium, but don't quite get there, and then lose anyway. They face the Rays at home after losing that series to the Orioles. They win the first game on Friday night. Don't hit much, but do enough to back up Max Fried. Devin Williams and Luke Weaver close the door. You have set yourself up for a series win if you can just hit Zack Latell and his 5 ERA or Taj Bradley and his mid-4s ERA and get a representative start from either Clark Schmidt or Will Warren. But wait, Clark Schmidt's not pitching. He's secretly injured, and his fill-in Ryan Yarbrough is great, but the Yankees don't hit the 5 ERA guy at all and lose on a blown lead in the 8th inning, and then fall into a huge hole because Will Warren is unpitchable, but then fight almost all the way back, make enough bad decisions when it gets close to lose the game, and look, a 2-4 week that should have been much better than that based on talent, based on performance in clutch scenarios. And we have Aaron Boone making post-game excuses on Sunday for the way that he handled the linear order of pinch hitting decisions. And he did it wrong. He did it wrong like 5 times in a row and then tried to justify what he had done. And his explanation just made it clearer that he had made successive mistakes. So May 5th, technically May 4th, because I was doing this yesterday, first crash out of the year. But there is no reason for a team with Aaron Judge having a Barry Bonds season, hitting 500 plus with men and runners in scoring position, hitting 430 on the season. There is no reason and no excuse for this team to be this boring. And some of the things that I gave them leeway on early, where I was, talking about the starting pitching depth and all that stuff. May 5th, I'm almost done giving leeway on it because now it's like early April opening day. Like what do you expect coming out of, spring training with all those injuries? Now we're in May. I expect you to be taking action on people that need to leave the roster and upgrades that you can make in season. So Thomas Carannante, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, everybody else joining us on podcast platforms, live on YouTube. They're facing the Padres this week. If any of these games get in because of the disgusting rain, the Padres are great. The Yankees are fine. The Yankees are in first place in a division where every other team's pretty bad. Every time the Yankees face off against their pretty bad division rivals, they lose the series they play. So this is a middling first place team right now. There's no reason they can't be one of the best teams in the AL by the end of the year, as we said last show, 2 shows ago. But right now, pretty much we're in one of those stretches that reminds you the worst of what this team is capable of. Really dull play and getting outmaneuvered by teams that are undermanned in comparison to them.
Yeah, I think the frustration now can start to be warranted, especially because you can trace this all the way back to the Devin Williams blown game against Tampa back on April 19th. The team has largely been bad since then, with the exception of Max Fried and Carlos Rodon.
Yeah, they win the Max Fried games. Yeah. They have to win the Max Fried and Carlos Rodon game because they're not even giving themselves a competitive chance in the other 3.
Yeah, they're now 5-8 over this stretch, and it's not good. Why is it not good? Because they, in theory, should have had a sweep against Toronto. They lost to the Guardians. They lost a series against the Guardians, which at the time obviously no one was panicking. Oh, it was a loss to the Guardians, road series, whatever. It's fine. You took the finale and you can ride with the momentum. But looking back on how, again, just uneventful the offense was, it's frustrating. And then you come back, you get that momentum with the doubleheader sweep of the Blue Jays. Then you just crap yourself in the series opener against the Orioles. And then, outside of in this 13-game stretch, the numbers are inflated with an 11-run performance against the Blue Jays on Kevin Gossman's meltdown day and the 15-run drubbing of the Orioles and Kyle Gibson's first start of the year after signing a month into the season because he couldn't get a job. So I think it's time to start discussing about how there are potential real offensive problems and how they need to be addressed. And also, there's problems all over the roster, right? The pitching staff can't be coin flips or, even less than that. You look at Will Warren and Carlos Carrasco, you are giving yourself less than a 50% chance to win, considerably less than a 50% chance to win every time they take the mound.
Yeah.
And like you said, just the dull nature of the offense. Like, again, you had a couple times over this last week where the Yankees started to stage a comeback and then just couldn't quite do it. You had
over and over again.
Yeah.
It's the most predictable part about the way that they operate. Down 5-0 and Bellinger homers. You're like, this will not be the last I hear from this offense. They're going to rally again. Like, even against this very good, every year very good Rays bullpen. This is going to be 5-4. And then, of course, they put up a 5 spot, and the reason they don't tie is because Carlos Carrasco came in, and we'll talk about that shortly. But I'm again, you can only do so much being proud of comebacks that fall 1 or 2 runs short, because it's every game now.
Yeah. The hitting with runners in scoring position, obviously, you could look at, again, in its totality, it's good, but the numbers are inflated. It's like talking about Anthony Volpe, right? You look at his numbers and you're like, oh, they're not that bad, but you're like, oh, he's good for 4 days and then he's completely useless for 2.5 weeks. So it's like, that's not the balance that's going to foster a potential championship team. It's not going to foster a deep playoff run, and it's not going to be healthy for the longevity of a 162-game season. So I think now, after, this was particularly demoralizing because, the first game of this series, yes, they won 3-0. That was great. They got one meaningful hit, and that was it. Paul Goldschmidt doesn't homer in that game. I don't really know what is happening.
A two out hit too. They probably shouldn't have even pitched to him. You got the lefty on Goldschmidt, and you're like, man, this is a matchup that theoretically this feels like a 3-run home run, because you've got Goldschmidt's best side. The matchup is fully in his advantage. I don't know why the Rays played into his advantage, and they nursed that 3-0 lead to the finish line. But like you said, without a bizarre flub or a piece of bravado from the Rays where they're just like, we're the Rays, we can get him out. Oh no, he porched us. Without that, it's a scoreless game into the bottom of the ninth.
Yeah, they go 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position outside of Goldschmidt's homer.
They had Vulpi on third with nobody out, trying to add on to that 3-0 lead too, and then very unsurprisingly does not score.
Yep. Then you have Zack Latell going 7 strong. Okay, cool. That happened. Great.
Under
Next
100
day,
pitches. 100 pitches. Like, didn't even need to take him out when you
81.
took him out.
They shouldn't have taken him out. I mean, he was at 81 through 7. That's objectively crazy. And then, look, that happened. Weird losses like that are going to happen. It is what it is. Would I rather it not? Yeah, that'd be great. You have another Anthony Volpe fielding error in there. They leave 3 players on base. That's how boring this game was. They left 3 runners on base. They left the bullpen susceptible to blow the game. The bullpen blew the game. It is what it is.
0 for 1 with runners in scoring position made me
crazy.
Laugh. Like, I know I'm angry when they blow these runners in scoring position opportunities, but I'd rather be 1 for 9 than 0 for 1. I've never seen that in my life.
Yeah, I was shocked when I looked at the box score too. And then you have Taj Bradley. He's 5 ERA, high 4s ERA, and you can't get anything going off him. And the broadcast constantly talking about how it's like, man, it's been really tough for this offense to string anything together since even they were like, even with that one Baltimore win, like, it's largely been tough for them to find a rhythm, and like, it's completely right. So now I know I'm not crazy complaining about this or feeling frustrated with the rhythm and everything, because something's clearly off. I don't know what it is really. I mean, I know that there's still no true leadoff hitter. And I know that we're still not seeing the results maybe from Jason Dominguez and Anthony Volpe as much as we would like, but I think those again are going to be a little bit Those are going to be a little bit more prolonged because they need the runway. But I don't know what. And look, you have the pitching not helping them out either. Like Will Warren's getting buzzsawed by the bottom of the Rays lineup. Carlos Carrasco can't come in and keep one of the worst offenses in check for a couple of innings of work. Like he comes in immediately and gives up 2 runs. And it's like, what are we doing here, man? So it's one of those situations at this point where neither part of the roster is helping the other. Usually the Yankees are able to sustain themselves because you have crazy offensive production that masks the pitching issues, or you have the like last year, the incredible pitching run throughout the first 2.5 months of the season masked the offensive issues beyond Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. Now we're just witnessing not great baseball with personnel decisions that are looming that arguably should have been made already, which we'll talk about. But yeah, I mean, they're lucky to be leading the division still. In my opinion, they're lucky the Red Sox have shit away the easiest stretch of their schedule.
The Red Sox should be 15 games over 500, and they're 18-18. I've never seen anything like that. If you're a fan of that team, the schedule the Red Sox played 7 against the White Sox. We know the American League is comparatively weaker this year, so it's not surprising. The Red Sox have only played 1 competent Major League team so far this year, but they haven't played a single NL team. It's May 5th. No interleague games. Yankees have the Giants, Yankees have the Brewers, Yankees have the Diamondbacks. Nobody. We didn't put a single NL team on the Red Sox schedule. So it's a minor miracle that the Yankees are where they are and that the Red Sox are where they are. But the bottom of the division is just so mid. The Orioles are so underwhelming. The Rays have such little firepower and so few recognizable names. And all it's going to take to even things out is a couple more series with the Yankees, because the Yankees are treating the Orioles and the Rays like they're the best versions of themselves from the last couple of years. Yankees are going to Baltimore and getting outgunned in tight games. Yankees are inviting the Rays in, and they're treating Zack Latell like he's Shane McClanahan. Like, it's beyond. This was my least favorite weekend of the season. And, it sort of goes without saying because the season's been, on the whole, relatively successful so far. So there haven't been a lot of weekends like this. But Saturday's game was just such a classic. You need to win this. You cannot lose this series to this Rays team after you get away with the win on Friday night, right? And so you're nursing this 2-1 lead forever, and Fernando Cruz looks incredible. And you're looking at the looming game. You see Will Warren on the schedule, and you're like, well, we can't lose today because we're probably not going to win tomorrow. And it's a classic scenario where if you win that tight one on Saturday and then get into the finale, literally whatever happens could not upset you, right? You lose that game in the way that they did. You go, wow, they sort of let an opportunity get away, but I understand it. They were not set up for success. You lose that game on Saturday and suddenly you're in panic mode, not to mention the Anthony Volpe injury, which we will talk about. And he is a complete roller coaster. And like you said, 4 of the hottest games of all time, followed by 2.5 weeks of nonsense. He's also completely indispensable for this team, especially with Jazz Chisholm on the shelf. Because if you like to complain about Anthony Volpe, people on Twitter, you're really going to love what happens when Anthony Volpe's not playing. It's Pablo Reyes and Oswald Peraza, and we saw it yesterday, and it was dog shit. So Saturday's game, they're nursing that lead forever. It feels like forever, but it's only about an hour. Yeah. And, they take it to the 8th inning, and you're convincing yourself, okay, I mean, they've been cruising. Obviously, this could turn at any moment. Volpe dives on that ball in the hole, skitters by him, and he can't get up. He's screaming. And that's not the catalyst for the inning falling off the rails, though. The catalyst is Mark Leiter Jr. coming in a 1-run game. I don't understand this guy and why the arsenal doesn't translate. And what happened in Chicago versus what's happening in New York. I was told he was Fernando Cruz, right? I was told the splitter was unhittable, and it was sort of, the fastball and splitter play off one another to the point where he's actually one of the Cubs' best high leverage relievers, even though the stuff doesn't look like it's so explosive. Every time I see him, he was dotting 95 in a spring training game earlier this March, and I was like, wow, Mark, that's the guy who was advertised. And now every time I see him in a regular season game, it's just 84 in the dirt. It starts low, it ends lower. Runners on, I'm like, how can he runners on base, I'm hoping for a reliever to squeeze out of a jam. Leiter Jr., I can't figure out how it would even happen. Curtis Mead took him to school with the runner on third. Just 0-2 to 3-2, looking at slop, fouled off a couple of middle pitches too during that at-bat where you're like, oh, I'm glad he got away with that one. But it actually didn't matter because he had nothing to follow up the ones he got away with. It was like, glad he got away with that. Now he can go to the 84-mile-an-hour nothing ball that no one's paying attention to in the dirt. Yeah. And lo and behold, Meade got enough bat on it to serve a game-tying single. And yeah, Volpe made the error afterwards. But Mark Leiter Jr. is supposedly an escape artist, supposedly got this all-time added swing and miss to the Yankees bullpen last year. Every time I see him now, it's like, I don't know how a single big league hitter could be fooled by what I'm looking at right now. It's slop low, it's slop low and in, it's slop low and away. And if he manages to get 2 strikes on a hitter, here comes the slow curve, here comes the splitter. I'm disinterested in this pitch from the moment it leaves his hand. And Meade put on an absolute masterclass there. And the Yankees go down, and then the Sunday game plays out exactly like we expected. They let the series squirt away in the 8th inning in a way that they absolutely couldn't afford to on Saturday. And now you're going into this red-hot Padres team, and yes, you have your pitching lineup and the way that you want it to be, but we could very easily – we're having this conversation probably a couple days ahead of schedule because everyone else is probably going to be having this conversation after however many of these Padres games get completed based on the rain. Because this is probably the series where it all comes to a head. And maybe you weren't watching during the Rays weekend series because the Rays are a snooze fest. But now the Padres are in town. Everybody else, national shows, are going to be picking up on what the Yankees currently have. And it's just, I mean, we're framing it in terms of letting Aaron Judge down. I think we have been harsh on Aaron Judge, rightly so, about his October struggles, about, people claim he's the best, you won't find a better force in the clubhouse. There's never been a captain like him before. And I'm like, great. Then why is he in lockstep with Aaron Boone? And why is the clubhouse going the same sour malaise run every August? Like, why are we 5 years deep of the exact same trajectory for the Yankees if he's the greatest leader that the franchise has ever had, even though one leader from the pretty recent past won 5 World Series? But okay, I guess Aaron Judge is the greatest leader that we've ever had. So, and October struggles, and of course they compound. And so I think we're probably harsher on him than most. But right now, he is hitting .423. He is hitting over 500 with runners in scoring position. He has had the best April a baseball player has had in my lifetime, essentially. You'll never have a better stretch than this. And there should be loud, screaming headlines every single day. And people are obviously covering Aaron Judge's success. We're not saying that it's getting papered over. But it should be, this is 2002 Barry Bonds. This is as good a response to the October struggles as we possibly could have seen from Aaron Judge. This is an unbelievable punch back after all the shit he was getting at the end of last season and through the offseason. And this should be the most interesting team in baseball because of what he's doing. And instead, he's the best individual player in the sport right now, and the team is extremely dull around him. Nobody is talking about the New York Yankees, and no Yankee fan is satisfied what the New York Yankees are doing on a daily, weekly basis. And we should be glued to Aaron Judge and the team that he is currently leading. But right now, he is the guy. Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt and Trent Grisham have been great stories. There's no one else in the lineup. And when you lose Volpe and Jazz, truly the bench and the things that we always yell at the Yankees for just leaving the bench exposed and leaving it accidental and saying, oh, whoever can be on the bench, who cares? Like, we have a starting lineup. Whoever didn't make the lineup, you're on the bench. Who gives a shit? Like, now it's all coming to a head because all those guys batted 5 through 9 yesterday, and you watched it in the 8th. You watched it all game long. Push came to shove, and the Yankees had no answer.
Yeah, I don't – it's upsetting, obviously, and I'm not going to sit here and say that there should be more media attention on the Yankees because we know how that would go. But you're looking at, again, a historic stretch. Even when you splice his last 162 games, it's like the same shit as Barry Bonds. So, like, he's replicating it again.
Yeah, it's insane.
And it's going to go – it's not going to go overlooked, but it's not going to be as appreciated as it should be because of how underwhelming the team has been over, the last 15 games or so. I think, I don't know. I feel like when Mike Trout was dominating at the level that he was, even though the Angels were irrelevant, like, there was a lot more chatter about that. And I don't know if it was because, like, oh, it's somebody on a team that should be better, and like, this is cool. Maybe he can bring this team out from the dead and create some sort of interesting narrative with them making a championship run. And for the Yankees, it's just like everyone assumes the Yankees are in contention. They assume they're a playoff team, and you have someone like Aaron Judge, who the general baseball fan doesn't want to hear about any more Yankees success. But the Yankees could force the issue and say, hey, we won fucking 25 games in the first month and a week of the season. Like, you're going to pay attention to us. Instead, they got off to a relatively quick start. Once again, played with their food, hung around, lost a bunch of games they shouldn't have lost. And this is where people start to get mad, because it's not like they're getting outdueled. It's not like they're undermanned to the extent where you're just like, well, what are you going to do? There's nothing that can be done. And it's like, no, there is something that can be done. We're losing a lot of winnable games. Again, there are only 3 teams worse than them in all of Major League Baseball in games decided by 2 runs or fewer. Insane. And it's the White Sox, it's the Rockies, and it's the Twins, and then it's the Yankees. So that speaks to, again, a larger problem that doesn't have to do with talent. It has to do with execution, and it has to do with circumstantial player reactions. So, like, whether it's a starter not being able to go the extra inning and deliver, if it's the bullpen coming in and not being able to hold a tight lead, if it's not coming through with runners in scoring position after a certain inning, if it's not stepping on the starter's throat when you have him on the ropes for the first 4 innings, there is a narrative here that you mentioned at the top of the podcast where there's a lot left to be desired, and it's a repeat of what we've seen in terms of what has held the Yankees back in terms of making that next step or taking that next step and being viewed as a bona fide contender. So, like, you look at this team without Juan Soto from 2020, at least, 2020 to 2023, and nobody, I would venture to say that nobody actually took them seriously. Like,
how could you? Yeah, I mean, somebody wants to tell me they were scared of the 2020 to 2023 Yankees. I'm all ears, but other than April and May 2022, I don't know how you could have.
Yeah, and it became evident in the postseason all those years, because you had the Rays beat them in 2020, then you had the Red Sox bounce them in 2021 in the wild card game, then you had the Astros absolutely mop the floor with them in an ALCS sweep, and then the next season they don't even make the playoffs. So you can't tell me, look, I will say the 2018 and 2019 Yankees, those teams were wagons, and they were, in my opinion, the gray area with the cheating and the sign stealing scandals going on, both the Red Sox and the Astros. Like, it's not an excuse. It's just what happened. And instead of using that as fuel and motivation, the Yankees continued to clam up over the years as time went on, and they wasted a lot of Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole's primes. And all of it just comes back to the fact that there is some sort of aspect of the DNA that's missing in order to define yourself as a juggernaut or as a feared contender. The Yankees are always in contention. We know that. It's the Yankees business model. They have to be contending. They have to remain interesting. They don't have to remain interesting to the extent of the Dodgers of what they're doing. They don't have to be the crafty underdog like the Red Sox like to define themselves as. They just need to be somewhere in between. And as long as they do that, revenue is going to be fine. Fans are going to show up. They're going to be in the news, whatever. But within that, in order to get further past where they need to be, there needs to be some sort of a shift in the overall execution in all of these individual moments. And now we're starting to see it it's snowballing a little bit. It's not panic mode yet. Again, team still has a good record. Team still at top of the AL East. No one's complaining about their standing in Major League Baseball right now, but it's like we talked even last year when things were going good with Juan Soto. We said, this is cool, but a lot of lineup problems, and it's not going to be pleasant to see it when it matters the most, and everyone's going to make fun of us. And that's exactly what happened. So, look, the Yankees made a decision, right? They pulled Devin Williams very quickly out of the closer role, and they moved fast with that because they wanted to be intentional. They wanted it. They wanted to protect Devin Williams, and they wanted to make the situation right before it got so bad that it was irreparable. Now they need to start doing that with a little bit more intention around the rest of the roster, because if they don't wake up out of this, whatever this is, it's going to continue a worsening trend, and they're going to be in really bad shape when the schedule starts to wear on them.
Yeah, that 2019 team was incredible. I think they go to the World Series or win it if Giancarlo Stanton stays healthy in the ALCS. And they couldn't. Mike Tauchman, if he doesn't get hurt in Boston, and he can even take over for Stanton, I'll give him that. But they were stuck with Cameron Maybin, who was really good, but just not to the same level. And Stanton, the uncertainty he created led to the end of whatever that was. Plus, the Astros just owned them all the time. But this is starting to feel very 2021 to me, and maybe I'm just not reacting quite as angrily to it as I did that year, because that was the first year where it was just like, wow, all of my worst fears are coming true. They're going to make the playoffs, right? They got some clutch wins under their belt at the end of the year when they needed it, but by and large, they would just give away a game every series in dramatic fashion. And so you would even win a series and you would say, I don't understand it. They just gave that loss away and it poisoned the whole series. So far, they are 19-15. Again, it's May. It's early in the season. That is not a bad place to be. They are in first place. But for every loss, it feels like is a total giveaway, either because they gave away at-bats during a tight game late, or they quite literally surrendered the lead. They have 4 losses already with leads in the 8th inning or later out of their first 15 losses, plus a blown 3-1 lead in the 6th inning. That doesn't count. They were up 3-0 Rodon against the Giants. He gives it a Jung Hoo Lee homer. So here we are at 19-15 on the year. And I can't just say every lead they had should be, you're going to blow some saves, but can I just give them 2 of them? Can I give them 21-13? And can I give him the 3-0 lead in the Rodon game? Can I give him 3 of these 5? Can I get him to 22-14? That would be a great place to be living. And we talked about it on the last show, I believe, the 8-4 lead over the Rays that started this whole calamity. That's not even a question. I have to give that to them. I can't even be nice and be like, I'll give them a little bit of leeway. Teams lose games. No, you have to finish that game. He got the first out of the inning. You have to finish that game. And then I'll give them 1 more of these tight ones. I'll admit, okay, fine, you lose some of these coin flips. But the 4th worst team in all of baseball in games that are decided by 2 runs or fewer, great. It's not easy to win close games. But you know who does? Great teams win a higher percentage of close games than they lose. And the Yankees lose a much higher percentage of close games than they win right now, based on the winning percentage, based on the hard work the bullpen has done to blow some of these games late. So the failures haven't been quite as catastrophic as 2021, but it does feel like they don't lose all the time. They win their fair share of games, started by Max Fried and Carlos Rodon. But when they do lose, it's very repeatable, patterned, late game mistakes, poor execution. And I don't even think Aaron Boone has done a blatant poor job this year with the roster he's been given. But yesterday, in the 8th inning, this is when the Yankees lose, the excuses start to spiral. And you were talking about the 2022 ALCS and what's the narrative? Not just that they're crushed by the Astros, but that after game 2, Aaron Boone's like, we got to look, the roof was open. And if it was closed, Aaron Judge has a big home run. And then everybody's like, oh my God, not only are they losing, but they're complaining about weather, because those are the kind of things that they choose to focus on. And so here's Aaron Boone yesterday. Bases loaded, down 4 in the 8th, inexplicably rallying. He's got a backup catcher, 30-year-old backup catcher rookie with 29 at-bats under his belt, who he lets hit for himself. Why? Because they don't want to bring Austin Wells into this game? Fine. If that's the reality, you can tell me that. Because you're worried about the defense in the aftermath. If you pinch hit for your catcher, you don't want to put Ben Rice back there. Okay. But Escarra grounds into a double play. Yorby Vivas comes up next and pinch hits and hits a 2-run single. So they're still driving closer. They end up cashing in a couple of those runs, even though the momentum was blunted. Rice pinch hits ultimately anyway. He gets walked. They don't come through and tie the game. Escarra has to play third. And then after the game, when Boone is asked about why he goes in this particular sequence of events, he says, because Escarra is the more experienced bat. 29 at-bats at the big league level. Legitimately, it's true by default. But come on, man. Just say that you liked his bat in that scenario more, or say you didn't want to get into a defensive knot. Just be honest with me. Do not tell me that JC Escarra's 2 weeks of 6 games experience is the differentiator and why you gave him that at bat versus why you gave Vivas the AB. And also, Vivas not being more experienced is also your fault, because you called him up last year, didn't put him in a game, and sent him right back down to AAA. So he should have gotten experience last year. Should have gotten 150 at-bats. Would have been valuable. Looks valuable already. I really like what I see. But making the experience argument retroactively to explain a decision you made that didn't work out when that is transparently nonsensical. Almost no one in Major League Baseball is less experienced than JC Escarra, who was in the independent league with the Gastonia Honey Hunters 2 years ago and wasn't a catcher. He was a first baseman, and now he's a catcher. He's a fantastic story. He's not a paragon of experience. So it's a lie, and it's also a lie that you helped create because you helped foment it because you didn't give Vivas the experience he could have had when you had the chance last year. So I hope Vivas starts every day. We're seeing, I mean, it's not all Boone's fault. The reason that the 5 through 9 hitters make no sense yesterday is because this offseason, they shopped for proven infield talent, didn't get it, and ended up running out a bench of Pablo Reyes, who needed to be DFA'd 2 weeks ago. Maybe the second game of the season when he made 3 errors behind Max Fried. And Oswald Peraza, who everybody agreed at the end of spring training, he's out of options and he's going to be traded. Then they just carried him on the roster, and I was like, well, surely they'll be looking for an upgrade tomorrow or the day after, and he'll just get traded like Franchi Cordero came in for Estevan Florial. Like, oh, they'll just bring him north as a pinch runner, and then they'll get rid of him. He's still here, and he started yesterday. And he made an error. He made a bad play. So they have no one behind Anthony Volpe and Jazz Chisholm, who were healthy until 3 days ago and are now both injured. Jazz is on the IL with something he said shouldn't even merit an IL trip, and then they examined him, and then it turned out to be a high-grade strain. And then I read yesterday it was 3 tears, which that is what a strain is. That's what a high-grade strain is. But yeah, 3 tears after he told me I'm going to be okay, I'll play. All right, we'll see you when we see you. And now, as if they couldn't afford to lose Volpe prior to that, you really can't afford to lose him now, because you end up with a lineup that looks like what it looked like yesterday, and you end up with Aaron Boone having to make tough decisions, and he botched like 4 in a row in the 8th inning.
Yeah, I don't know why there was the mental gymnastics after the game. The simple answer is I wanted to see what JC Escarra could do in a big spot, because he hasn't had many this year. And
I'm fine with that. Like, he's going to be a valuable part of the team. It didn't work. It didn't work, but I'm fine with the explanation of our bench was a little thin. I wanted to see what Escarra could do in a big spot like this, and I knew I had backup afterwards. And I used one, and he came through. Like, fine.
We had flexibility with the bases loaded and nobody out. The one thing he couldn't do, he did. It complete backfire, my fault. Like, that's it. But don't say he is, again, more. He arguably might be the least experienced player on the Yankees roster when you consider the fact that he was not affiliated with an organization up until the Yankees decided to take a chance on him. Like, I view Bibas's experience in AAA with the Dodgers and AA with the Dodgers and AAA with the Yankees is more valuable than independent ball. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's wrong to say, but I do. And again, his experience at the big league level has been few and far between. He's roster filler. Like you mentioned, love the story, love the guy. Very much an enjoyable personality, like a breath of fresh air when it comes to who the Yankees typically employ. But like, he's not an additive member of the roster. It's just objectively not true. You don't see 30-year-old rookies walking into Major League Baseball making an impact. It just doesn't happen. So Aaron Boone saying that's where, again, this is where people start to get mad. Because honestly, Aaron Boone's been doing a great job this year.
Yeah.
Navigating the media, making the right decisions. Like, I can count on, I don't even know if I can count many decisions where I was like, what is this guy doing? And I feel like every year in April, like, I have 10 pieces of evidence. This year, this is really the first thing where I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, this is crazy that A, you decided to pinch hit after this had happened, and B, then you had this excuse in the post game.
You bring Ben Rice up in a position where they could just easily pitch around him, and they did. Yeah.
Yeah, the runner on first. Like, okay, cool, that's great. The only concern that I had with not pinch hitting for Escarra, and this is where that execution and like the mentality comes in for me, is like, if I really want to get pessimistic about it, it's like, the Yankees, Aaron Boone didn't think the Yankees were going to win the game if he kept JC Escarra in there. He was just like, yeah, we'll just keep going. We'll see what happens, I guess. But like, we're not coming back from 7-2. Like, we'll try, but we're not gonna. And it was like the opportunity to do that was to pinch hit for JC Escarra. So if your explanation in the post game is what he said, then you weren't serious about winning the game, and you weren't serious about actually seeing what he could do in a clutch moment. You were trying to avoid putting yourself in a precarious defensive position for the last, inning and a half?
And then you ended up with JC Escarra at third base anyway, and whatever, and then it was fine. But
so, what did you do? You decided that after JC Escarra grounded into a double play that, okay, yeah, now we can win this game. I think we can now win this game after we just got our probability cut in half at the
it's down to like 4%. Yeah, I checked. I was like looking at it, was like 4.5% or something like that. And then spoiler alert, they didn't win the game. The 96% won.
Yep. So that's where, and look, I hope it's not, again, it's Aaron Boone protecting his players. We know that. I don't know, who did Bebas pinch hit for? Pablo Reyes. That was absolutely the right call.
Yeah,
absolutely the right call. I would have just done, because I like Oswaldo Cabrera's bat in a situation like that. Like, I don't know if that's me just kind of being biased. Like, is he the greatest hitter ever? No, but like, Escarra is worse than he is in terms of delivering, and Pablo Reyes is worse than he is in terms of delivering. So if you're looking at a bat to get out of these situations, you have three. You have JC Escarra, you have Pablo Reyes, and you have Oswald Peraza. And guess what? 2 out of the 3 of them hit. And then you took it. You pinch hit for Cabrera, who's a good option for, yes, a better option in Ben Rice, but you didn't get the upgrade that you needed to in the other situation, so it became pointless.
And I promise I will never do longer than 38 minutes of crashing out about a May 2nd through 4th series against the Tampa Bay Rays. But in terms of infield depth, like I don't want to be as annoyed by this as I am, but a nugget that popped up over the weekend that I doubt anybody paid attention to because you were watching the Yankees blow 2 games was the Red Sox lose Tristan Casas, and it was an awful injury, and best wishes to him. That is horrible. That's the worst thing that could happen to a Major League Baseball player, pretty much. And someone who was already unfairly maligned by the Red Sox fan base. But they call up Abraham Toro, sort of a utility infield option, the guy with a bat that's played at the big league level before, and not.
He's kind of solid.
He's kind of solid. He's not someone who would light my fire, but if I had Abraham Toro right now over Pablo Reyes, I would be like, all right. I mean, that guy's tough.
Abraham is a sick name too.
Sick name, very cool. And overall, we would be psyched if we had Abraham Toro. Rob Bradford, Boston media said Abraham Toro had 2 offers from 2 teams in the offseason, the Red Sox and the Yankees. He picked the Red Sox. So, hey, maybe that's a preference thing. Maybe we didn't have the facial hair policy reversed. Maybe he just wanted to be a Red Sox. I don't know anything. But I do know the way the Yankees approached their offseason pursuit of Jorge Polanco and their offseason pursuit of Brendan Rodgers. And they're just not paying any money for anybody at this point. Like, they're offering the bare minimum to pretty much everybody on the market. And that's how you end up with Oswald Peraza by accident and Pablo Reyes. So what was their offer to Abraham Toro that got outbid by the Red Sox? I'm going to go. I know it's not fair without the details. I'm going to go ahead and assume those offers were not equal. Maybe they were. Maybe they were. And maybe he just picked the Red Sox. But I don't think the Yankees have earned that right of fairness right now. And so looking at that and looking at the options they actually have, it just made me roll my eyes all over again, which brings us to Carlos Carrasco, who
I mean, you just can't tell me. You can't tell me that there's not somebody who could either give you more or provide more of a blueprint for the future than Carlos Carrasco.
I mean, in March, when the Yankees lost Clark Schmidt and Luis Gil and Garrett Cole in succession, and everybody was mad about how bad and paper thin their rotation depth looked on the surface, my line that I kept repeating was, I don't know how all of you expect the Yankees number 9 starter to be as good as you believe they should be. Like, no team would succeed under those circumstances entering the season. Nobody has 11 starters deep who they trust. even the Dodgers. They're throwing bullpen games, right? So I had no issue with holding on to Carlos Carrasco, trying to squeeze all you could out of him. And Will Warren looked incredible in the spring. I didn't buy his breakout then as like, oh, he's good to go. But I at least thought he'd be an improvement on last year. He has not been. He shouldn't be in this rotation anymore. Ryan Yarbrough should take his spot immediately. He has to go work on his location at AAA. He's throwing 93 middle and getting painted by the Tampa Bay Rays. But Carlos Carrasco, it's May. There has to be somebody. There has to be some AAA swingman. If you don't believe in Alan Winans, okay. There has to be somebody's AAA swingman who's falling out of favor in their city or an experienced arm somewhere else who is now available to be pried off a roster via trade. Because I don't need any more data on Carlos Carrasco. Great career, great when he was great. It's not there anymore. Not a viable big league starter. If he can get through 4 or 5 acceptable innings, it feels like the biggest possible win. He's honestly been better than he should be based on what he's got left. He's had a couple of good starts. The Yankees should hang their hat on getting those out of Carrasco. But at this point, no more. There has to be an upgrade somewhere, whether it is Winans or on another roster. So entering the season, I stand by that expectations were too high for what the Yankees had been dealt. I don't know how they were supposed to do better on opening day based on what happened to them this spring, but it's been a month and a half. It's May 5th. Now the expectations are you got to go find somebody because there are 2 starters in the rotation right now who do not give you more than a 15% chance to win every day. And you can't have 2. You shouldn't have 1. You can't have 2.
Yeah, no, you're I agree with the expectations. Like everybody sitting there believing that whatever lost production there was, an unsustainable amount of lost production. Like no other team sees that. Maybe the Dodgers have seen it to an extent, but they're a team that prides themselves on depth, and they've been able to weather the storm and put themselves in a position where they're not going to be losing games like this on a consistent basis. So, yeah, I mean, obviously there could have been a better job done by the Yankees, but in that moment, losing that many guys that close to opening day, it was like you just throw your hands in the air and you say, all right, let's just see what happens first 4 weeks, and then we'll make decisions after that. Now, May 5th, you have 2 starters in the rotation who have 6+ ERAs. One of them is a 25-year-old former top prospect who you still believe in and had a very promising spring training and honestly has looked good in spurts, right? He had 8 strikeouts against the Rays the other day. Or was that yesterday already? I don't even know what day it is. Yesterday. 8 strikeouts against the Rays in 4 2/3 innings. Defense let him down, but in the end, he gave up 5 hits with 2 strikes. You simply can't do that. He walked 3 batters and was a piñata for the bottom of the Rays lineup. So, like, not good, but stuff that could be promising for later down the road. And again, 25 years old with options. The other player is a 38-year-old, 16-year veteran journeyman who has not been good in a long time and does not cost any money and can be shucked off the roster at any point at no cost without fear of losing him to another team, without fear of wasting options or wasting talent. He's just filler. And the Yankees, do I think there's value in carrying Carlos Carrasco on a roster? Absolutely. That roster would have the luxury of employing somebody who is not very good, who is put on the pitching staff to merely eat innings to preserve the better pitchers in the bullpen and the starting rotation. And that is a role. And that is a role someone like Ryan Yarbrough has assumed in recent years and kind of currently is doing now in a swingman role. I think he's a little bit more of an elevated version of that. But someone like Carlos Carrasco, who literally just has veteran experience starting so you can get length out of him in the bullpen, is a throwaway roster spot. And I don't mean that like it's not an insult. It's just he has a 6 ERA. He's been in the high 5s for the last, like, I don't know what, like 3 years cumulatively, if you look at the numbers. So it's just not a serviceable major league player on a contending team. Unless, like I said, you have a stunning roster, active roster of 25 players, and then you say, you know what? We're going to get Cookie Carrasco in here. He's a good veteran. He's got a lot of experience, and we can use him when we don't want to burn our other arms. Great. The Yankees are not in that position. The Yankees have a pitching staff on stilts yet again because of all the injury issues and because of some backslides in performance. So Carlos Carrasco's role on this roster should not – there is no role on this roster for him because they can't afford to continue to employ people who are not giving them a chance to win. And he, unfortunately, was elevated into that role by no fault of his own, by no choice of his own. It's just what happened. And I thought that it was a solid few weeks to see what he could do. And now we've seen the worst of it fairly consistently. And I'm just not – I don't think it's worthwhile for this team to trot somebody out there who is going to give them a 30% chance to win or even less than that on any given night. And I know the results have look, people who are super angry about this, which I get, will paint a much more horrid picture. Look, Carlos Carrasco's had 3 good starts.
Yeah.
He has. He was effective in those starts. He gave the Yankees a chance to win, but in his bad starts, he subtracted WAR. So the good starts that he's had have been canceled out and fully negated beyond zero because of how his other outings so horribly affected the roster, whether it was burning the bullpen, whether it was putting the team in an early hole, the offense in an early hole. So, there can't be that big of a swing on the pendulum for what this team is dealing with right now. So there's just you can't tell me that there's not a younger option out there who has stuff or has stamina or just has overall potential that the Yankees can't substitute for Carlos Carrasco. It's crazy to me. And again, I get how the Yankees are in this position. Bad luck with injuries. It is what it is. But now you know what you're living with, and it can't go on. Simply can't.
Yarbrough has been so valuable. I was not a proponent of carrying Alan Weinrib on the roster out of spring training, but now he has made 4 appearances and thrown 14 innings and struck out 24 guys and not allowed an earned run at AAA. So similar to the Carrasco mold, doesn't throw hard. I would give him the opportunity now, and I would search actively for upgrades, even marginal ones. And I think we're beyond the time when the Yankees need to be doing that. Unfortunately, they have a great young rotation all at Hudson Valley and Somerset. Nobody at AAA. Yeah. They're all 2 to 3 steps below where the Yankees need them to be in order to elevate somebody to take these reps. But yeah, this experiment is over. They've gotten more good starts out of him than I thought they would. The start against the Diamondbacks, I was very surprised by. He had moments. If they get a ring, he will deservedly get a ring. He helped the team get a ring. Look at me. What are we doing? But if that happens, I'll see him at the ceremony. I'm excited, but it's over. We got what we needed, and it's done. You could carry him as the 26th man insurance. You cannot keep him in the rotation, and the Yankees don't have enough depth to afford to carry anybody like that right now. And speaking of lack of depth, one final comment before we sign off. The Anthony Volpe injury doesn't seem to be bad. He got the MRI in addition to the X-ray, so even though he heard something pop, and even though his shoulder was cranky, and even though they kept him in the game to flub a potential double play ball a couple batters later, he seems to have escaped disaster, and he will not be down as long as Jazz Chisholm will be, unless more develops and unless he worsens his current prognosis by playing through it. And I hope he doesn't play on Monday if this game does get played tonight. I hope he gets another day off. We'll see. It seems like the Yankees avoided a worst-case scenario here, which when we saw him go down, I don't know how that's not a season-ending injury, based on the way he reacted, based on the way he stayed on the ground. And I don't know how he lobbied them to keep him in the game. He tends to get that weird special treatment sometimes. What other Yankee would be allowed to stay in the game after grimacing and screaming? And I do want to say, I think the people who were on Vulpi for fumbling that grounder after the game was already tied, when he tried to act as quickly as possible and turn a double play, I don't even think he would have turned a double play if he'd executed that perfectly based on where the ball bounced right before he tried to bring it in, based on who was running. But I hear you. If you're mad, sure, express your anger.
Bad luck.
Bad luck, and I'm pretty sure he was thinking about, I think my shoulder's ripped up. That's what you get for keeping him in the game. He was just writhing on the ground, and now you're calling on him to make the most important play of the game. Yeah. Not in my universe. I don't want to see Pablo Reyes or Oswald Peraza start, but I definitely want to see Oswald Peraza come in there and sub in for the guy who can't lift his arm above his head. Yeah. That's my take. But look, the one thing you couldn't afford, I'm not going to linger on this series. We vented, we got it out, it's over, did this angry podcast about this boring Yankees team losing a boring series to a boring Rays team, winning the Max Fried game and not turning that into anything of note. But if they lost Anthony Volpe, a player who, again, the stats look a little bit inflated because of a great week and then the worst 2.5 weeks you've ever seen, he's like the 5th best hitter on this team, and he hasn't been good enough, but he is beyond essential at this point to the operation. And I think it looks more like 145 starts than 162. Like we talked about, you got to give him breathers. You got to take strategic rest here every now and then. But they didn't have the infield depth to deal with a Volpe loss before Jazz went down. And now everything beyond him is abominable for the time being. So, yeah, that's just about the worst player they could lose, other than you all know the other worst players they could lose. I will not mention them. I do not want to think about that. But on the, there are very few indispensable pieces right now, and that is weirdly one of them. And someone who, if they lost Volpe, the replacement cogs just the line of succession goes out the window.
Yeah, and don't mistake the conversations we have about Anthony Volpe for a lack of appreciation. Like, I absolutely value the fact that he's durable and he's a good defender and he brings pop to the plate. Like, those are all positives, and those are perhaps, I guess, things we should magnify a little bit more from time to time. But when there's a tough discussion to come up because he's in a 6 for 57 slump and can't stop striking out and can't deliver at any point in time, like that's what people are going to talk about. And that's when you start comparing him to his peers. And that's when you start reminiscing, not even when you start thinking back on the horrid decision of them passing on that star shortstop class and not making the aggressive decision on really, Corey Seager. Maybe it would have been too much money. I don't know. But it seemed like the perfect fit and the perfect way for him to transition off of shortstop, which he was going to need to do anyway. And then wasting the stopgap year with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and killing your contention window that season. So, I mean, and look, we are frustrated to an extent with how Volpe's been treated, right? He's gotten treatment like no other prospect we have seen in the last 25 years has been treated. Everything's been laid out for him. He can play in every game if he wants. He's going to be given the runway to make all the mistakes and go through all the growing pains, and nobody else is afforded that. Nobody else is afforded that. The Yankees have thrown prospects with plenty of potential behind them into the waste bin because they spent 2 weeks with the major league team and didn't do anything. And fans have complained about those performances as well. And we can go back and look at those and say, oh, you were bitching and moaning about this guy sucking for 3 weeks, and now you're going to complain the Yankees release him. I'm like, well, you look at someone like Oswaldo Cabrera, where it was like, why don't we give him more of a chance? And it's come to fruition this year, but how long did it take Oswaldo Cabrera to get a little bit more respect and play in a position of comfort? You look at someone like Oswald Peraza, who was just literally passed up for the shortstop job for Volpe because they said, we're going to make this a spring training battle now. And Peraza was like, wait, I debuted last year and played in the playoffs. Like, this is happening? Okay, cool. And then you've seen countless other players who have younger players who have had playing time sacrificed because of a lack of execution and a lack of production. And Volpe's been allowed to get away with that. He's had 2 very bad offensive seasons. Statistically, there's no arguing with them. And there was nobody to give him a breather. He missed 3 total games over the last 2 seasons. There was no effort for the Yankees to say, you know what, let's give somebody else a shot, or let's just tell him that we're going to give him a break because he's earned it and we don't want this to worsen or whatever. They just, nope, we'll keep going with it. But in the end, Anthony Volpe is an important player. His speed is very valuable. I think his personality is actually great. He has very good energy. And I think is someone who's valued on this team in well beyond his playing abilities. So yeah, if he goes down and there's a problem, that'll once again be the Yankees' fault for not establishing. The other problem with him playing in all those games, right, is they haven't trained anybody else to, what might happen if Anthony Volpe goes on the 10-day IL because he twisted his ankle? No, we have nobody, in fact. So, like, that's another part of the problem. Shortstop, essential position, hard to get 162 games out of such a demanding position. Yankees have been lucky enough to get that for 2 seasons. That is not happening forever. So somebody else needs to be there. Somebody else needs to be able to hold that position down defensively, because we know we're not getting it offensively. And if you have this revolving door of backups who can't get the job done, then you're going to be in a well worse off spot. So yeah, need Anthony Volpe. Glad that he's apparently okay. I mean, I'll believe it when we get a couple more games out of him, because we just had the Jazz injury update, which was like, he's telling everybody he's going to be fine, and then he's out for 6 weeks. So my fingers are crossed here. Again, I like Anthony Volpe a lot. I want to see him keep playing and continue to grow. It's not going to stop me from talking about his struggles. But, yeah, you want to – for the people who actually complain about him and want him off the team in AAA, whatever, you're in for a rude awakening if he's going to miss any amount of time right now.
And that much was very obvious yesterday. Well, hey, look, if you need a backup, there's always Abraham Toro. Wait, no, never mind. Sorry. He's a Boston Red Sox, and he's their first baseman, I guess. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody, Mondays and Thursdays, 2 o'clock Eastern time on the Yanks Go Yard podcast, hopefully doing brighter podcasts around the corner. It'd be great. We just want to give you what the team has earned, right? Today, they deserve a talking to. Maybe Thursday we'll do a podcast about how they won a waterlogged series from the Padres and all is forgiven. We'll see. I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know right now on Monday afternoon. But we will be back here 2 o'clock Eastern on Thursday, regardless of the result. I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carannante, where can the people find you?
At Tommy's_takes. Thank you very much. We are both at the official Yanks Go Yard account. That is at Yanks Go Yard FS. Give us a holler. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. The least you can do. If you like us, you'll get alerts for when we're going live, which is every Monday and Thursday. But you never know. We could sneak a fun one in between. Head on over to yanksgoyard.com. That's where all the written content is for you. Adam and I, along with a group of other writers, providing everything that you need. Yankees updates, opinions, post-game commentary, whatever you want. Rumors. We got it all. Appreciate your guys' support. Thank you for tuning in once again. It's pouring rain right now. I'm in New York. They should call this game off. I don't know what they're going to do. We know MLB to be particularly annoying with calling Yankees games off. I don't know why. Hopefully they just make a definitive decision and we can move on. But hopefully also we're talking to you Thursday about something good, because I don't want to do this again.
I don't want to do this again either. Getting conflicting word from different people. Like Max Goodman and Greg Joyce are at the stadium, and they say it's just people walking around in yellow rain slickers. The forecast has gotten worse. It's raining in the Bronx right now, and the forecast went from like 60% rain probability through the game to like 99 till 10 p.m. So I don't think this game's getting played, but the Yankees rain delay guy, like the NYY weather man, tweeted heavy rain clearing NYC before 7 o'clock first pitch, expect playable weather until 10 or 11. So that makes no sense to me. Rain delay guy, that makes no sense. Explain yourself. What's your methodology? I disagree, but we will see. The Yankees do play some baseball. There's a mutual off day on Thursday, so we could just make this Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That'd be great. Tuesday also sucks. Wednesday also sucks. So maybe one of those two, and then doubleheader on Thursday. Either way, it's going to screw somebody. It might screw everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. We'll let you know what's going on. Maybe we'll be doing a live podcast during a triple header. I don't know. But catch us on Thursday. We'll let you know what happens then. Until then, see everybody. And Yankees rebound, please. Stop being so boring. Thank you.